morning, everyone! This is the TSMU fan here, and today we'll be covering something that I mentioned in a previous video. If you watched my Big World Big Adventures review video, you might remember me saying this. While I do kind of like how NIA was handled in this movie, how she was handled in the show is a whole different discussion entirely, which I am not going to cover in this video. This video is specifically reviewing the movie, and not the whole series that would follow it. So today, I thought I would elaborate on this claim. Today, we will be talking about NIA the African Tank Engine, Thomas's disappointing new character, why she worked well in the Big World Big Adventures movie, and why she ultimately doesn't work in the show itself. But first of all, let's explain some backstory as to how she came to be, shall we? Before the release of the movie Journey Beyond Sodor in 2017, rumors started circulating around the internet about this big new rebrand of the Thomas franchise, called Big World Big Adventures. Some articles were even published talking about the changes to the show that would be happening, such as Edward and Henry leaving the Steam Team, Thomas going around the world with half of the episodes in the seasons taking place in different countries, and the narrator being written out so that Thomas could break the fourth wall and narrate the stories from his point of view. Fans were skeptical about this news and the changes at first, but they all proved to be true when Edward left the Steam Team in the season 21 finale, A Shed for Edward. According to the fan carpet, the film Big World Big Adventures took 21 months to produce, 9 months to animate, and over 9,500 hours of animation to complete. As such, this production took the longest time out of any Thomas & Friends production to date, to which possibly started in mid-2016 and ended in February 2018. The movie alongside Season 22 marked the third major rebrand of the franchise, following the introduction of the Steam Team and simplification of the writing in Season 8 and the show switching over to full CGI with a full voice cast in Hero of the Rails. The movie and season were both concepts from producers Ian McHugh and Michaela Winter and was the result of market research Mattel conducted with audiences around the globe. It was about how they could keep Thomas & Friends relevant in a competitive market, as well as reversing declining toy sales caused by the increasing popularity of Paw Patrol. The one suggestion Mattel was intrigued with came from a child declaring, "Trains can go places, but Thomas never goes anywhere." This eventually evolved into Thomas traveling around the globe and learning about different cultures, which came to fruition in the movie, in which Ace the race car convinces Thomas to travel around the world and gets loaded into a ship by Carly the Crane. On his travels, Thomas goes to Africa and meets NIA, a bright orange African tank engine who follows him around and eventually goes back to Sodor with him at the end of the movie. NIA is based on a Kenya-Uganda Railway ED-1 class, a class of 262 tank engines built by Vulcan Foundry for the Kenya-Uganda Railway between 1926 and 1930. Primarily used for shunting duties, they were also used to haul branch line trains. They were later operated by the East African Railways and were reclassified as part of the EAR-11 class. One member of this class, number 327, was preserved at the Nairobi Railway Museum in Nairobi, Kenya. NIA's design sheet shows that she was specifically modeled after this engine. Another design sheet shows that her conception began as late as July of 2016. During this time, she was initially known as Kessie, and artists at ARC Productions had begun designing her appearance with the help of the Royal African Society. However, on August 1st, 2016, ARC announced that they were unfortunately filing for bankruptcy. Following their closure in the exact same month, Jam-Filled Entertainment very fortunately acquired the business and hired most of ARC's former employees, and the business reopened as Jam-Filled Toronto on August 22, 2016. In 2017, NIA was modeled in full CGI by Jam-Filled Toronto for the 2018 film Big World Big Adventures. After coming back to Sodor with Thomas in the movie, she later on became the newest member of the Steam Team in Season 22 in the episode Forever and Ever, replacing Edward, and Rebecca, another new character introduced in the episode Confusion Without Delay, replaced Henry. According to Ian McHugh, this was done to fix the gender imbalance at Tidmouth Sheds and diversify the Thomas & Friends franchise. He promised, however, that Henry and Edward were still very much a part of the show, and that they would still be appearing as usual.
Henry and Edward still very much part of the show and will be seen working on the railway as usual.
Although as tertiary characters as opposed to main characters. All all of these changes definitely made longtime fans of the show very upset, to the point where the aforementioned episode, Forever and Ever, poked fun towards the people who were complaining about all the changes occurring.
And Sir Topham Hatt says I can stay in the sheds in Vickerstown from now on.
What?
Now, with all this backstory of how Nia came to be and how the show changed drastically out of the way, let's take a deep dive into why Nia ultimately doesn't work. Let's start by discussing how she was handled in the movie first and then in the actual show itself. If you remember watching my Big World Big Adventures review video, you'll remember that when I revisited the movie, I found out that Nia wasn't handled that badly in it, and I'll be honest, she really wasn't. In the movie, Nia is a very helpful sort of engine, and this is shown when she offers to help Thomas with his goods train to Dar es Salaam, and when she offers to help him take the coffee to San Francisco. Now, helpful characters in Thomas are definitely nothing new for the show. There's tons of other characters that can fit that bill, but what I like about Nia in the movie is that she has this sort of cheeky personality to her, which makes her a fun mirror to the grumpy Thomas in the movie. She retorts to his comment of not needing help on the hill in Africa by saying that she didn't know that he was going backwards for fun, and proceeds to do so herself, which causes Thomas to slide backwards as well since the train was too heavy for him. She even does this again later when she, Thomas, and Ace are in America to show that she knows how to have fun, which obviously annoys Ace. When Thomas runs into the elephant on the tracks, she doesn't give him any advice on how to move it out of the way, and assumes that he'll know how to handle it himself since he had said earlier that he knows how to deal with animals on the tracks. After Thomas, Ace, and herself escape the broken bridge, Ace comments that he'll never ride as a passenger again, and Nia retorts by saying that it's a good thing that he doesn't get scared. Ace of course denies being scared, but it's clear that he was when he said that he doesn't like water after the bridge collapsed, and I love that Nia called him out on that. She's also shown to be a pretty intelligent character as well. She pieces together that Ace isn't a very good friend to Thomas and picks up on the fact that Ace is taking advantage of Thomas to get him where he needs to go. And she comes up with the idea to use the leaves in the rainforest to have the rainwater filter into Thomas's tanks when he runs out of water. Let's talk about that for a second. I love how they had Nia come up with this idea, as it's using her cultural knowledge to their advantage here. African villagers actually do make huts using leaves in certain parts of Africa, especially in Central Africa, and it's overall really clever that they chose the African character to come up with this idea. I also like that she has the sort of sensitiveness to being abandoned or ignored. And this is shown in the movie when Thomas tries to apologize to her in China for going along with and being tricked by Ace, and she gives him the cold shoulder. I like that they gave her this personality, as it goes pretty well with what she says to Thomas at the end of the movie, that her shed on her old railway was destroyed and that she doesn't have a home to go back to. It sort of implies that her old railway abandoned her when she wasn't needed anymore, and thus, she took being abandoned or ignored personally since it cost her her home. Now, I do take issue with how she looks in the movie itself. If she's supposed to be a character that got abandoned, why does she look like she's in perfect condition and seems to be taken care of well? And why does her design remind me a lot of Ashima from The Great Race? The two of them have a very similar design, and it could make it hard to tell them apart if you're someone who has never watched the show before. If it were up to me, I would have had Nia look all rusty and clearly abandoned in the movie itself, with her wearing a livery that resembles the engine she is based off of. And then when she gets restored, I would honestly have her keep her original design we see in the early trailers for the movie. We never get to see it in full, but it seems to be a lot more restrained than the design that we get in the final movie. I wish that they would have kept it, with the addition of NWR on her tanks. But overall, that's really all that I have to say about Nia in the movie. She was handled well, and I really think that they used her to her fullest potential. That's probably because this is the final movie that Andrew Brenner worked on, and he probably tried to make Nia as likable as possible so that the fans wouldn't be as mad when Edward got written out. With all of the talk of how she was handled in the movie out of the way, now let's move on to how she was handled in the show itself. To To say it simply, Nia just doesn't fit in. She feels completely out of place at the sheds in the show itself, and the addition of Rebecca didn't help matters either. But this isn't a video about her, this is a video about Nia. Let's dive into why Nia doesn't work in the show, and compare and contrast with everything that the movie presented to us. Now, I will say that the show still retains Nia's helpful side. She comforts Gordon after Edward and Henry move out in Forever and Ever, but really though, why is she the one saying all this stuff? It would have been so much more appropriate for Edward or Henry to say this to Gordon, the ones who chose to move out and leave, not the character who just moved in and chose to be there with them. She offers her job of taking the Sodor Rangers to Emily in Rangers of the Rails. She offers words of encouragement to Darcy when she arrives on Sodor in First Day on Sodor. She gives up going to get Rocky and tells Rebecca to do it for her when the emergency drill happens in Emily to the Rescue. But as for that cheeky side that we saw in Big World Big Adventures, it's absolutely nowhere to be seen. There's never really any moment in the show where Nia cleverly retorts back at anyone, and she's mostly just written as the kind and helpful character. Wow, that certainly doesn't sound different from any other character in the show, now does it? She is still intelligent. She comes up with the idea to get the unfriendly elephant to ride on her train in Nia and the Unfriendly Elephant. She comes up with the idea to use the Ferris wheel at Ulfstead Castle as a lighthouse to guide Harold in when he's stuck in a snowstorm in Nia's bright idea. The episode Counting on Nia shows several occasions where she solves problems that the other engines come across. But come on, do you really expect me to believe that such an intelligent engine can't read English numbers? This almost feels like a retcon of sorts to the intelligent side of her that the movie showed us, and it just honestly almost feels like an excuse to write a story to teach very little children how to count. It would not surprise me one bit. Speaking of counting on Nia, this episode is really the only one that uses her cultural knowledge to their advantage, or disadvantage in this story's case. Other than her singing to the elephant in Nia and the Unfriendly Elephant, there's never any moment where we see her use her cultural knowledge to their advantage for a story, and the only thing they really do with her is constantly have her mention she's from Kenya. It honestly feels like an excuse to remind audiences that Thomas now has this diverse character as a part of the main cast, which I do want to make clear that I have no problem with, but they should have done more with her than just having her say something relating back to her time in Kenya. Imagine if there was an episode where she had to deal with snow, something that she would have never seen in Kenya before. Heck, they did something like this with Victor back in season 19, why couldn't they also do this with Nia? It would have been such a clever way to utilize her problem solving to get out of a bad situation. Anyways, I do also want to bring up that I appreciate that her sensitivity to being ignored or abandoned is still present, but it's really only prevalent in Forever and Ever when Gordon is against the idea of Nia moving into the sheds. We never get a story of just how Nia was abandoned, and I think that having a story that sheds some light on her backstory of how she came across Thomas in the movie would have made for a great episode. I mean, heck, they flesh out Yong Bao's origins in Yong Bao and the Tiger. Again, why couldn't they have done the same thing with Nia? It would have been a great way to expand upon her character and show us the other engines that she would have worked with. Overall, Nia in the show just feels completely out of place, and she definitely does not feel like the same character that we saw in the movie. It's no wonder why the fans didn't like her. They didn't really do anything interesting with her in the show itself. She, for the most part, has the same character as pretty much anybody else in the show, and it's honestly a disappointment to see just how underused she was in the show itself, because I won't lie, the movie showed that Nia has a lot of potential for good story ideas, but in the show itself, she's just a character that they never do anything exclusive with, or take her character in a new direction, or really give her any character traits that the others don't have. She's honestly a really disappointing new character, and not for the reason that she replaced Edward. If she proved to be a really interesting character with a lot more time put into fleshing her out and showing us what she can do, then fans probably wouldn't have a problem with Edward getting written out. Sure, they'd still be upset, but probably not as upset if Nia was just given some more time time to prove herself. In fact, Nia wasn't supposed to replace Edward at first. That honor was actually going to go to Rebecca. So originally, the 21st season of Thomas and Friends was written to have 26 episodes, but following the delayed productions of the 19th and 20th seasons after The Adventure Begins was fast-tracked onto ARC Productions' schedule, 8 of the episodes were cancelled so that development of Big World Big Adventures and Season 22 could start. In March of 2021, producer Ian McHugh confirmed in an email to a fan that the episodes Confusion Without Delay, Samson and the Fireworks, which was originally titled Oliver's Fear of Fireworks, Thomas's Animal Arc, Chucklesome Trucks, and Nia and the Unfriendly Elephant, which was simply just called The Unfriendly Elephant, were all originally written for Season 21. These episodes were pushed back to the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th seasons respectively. This confirms that Rebecca was supposed to appear in Season 21 as a new character, taking Edward's spot in the sheds. And honestly, I think that Rebecca appearing in Season 21 would have been a great idea. I'd love to see what the original scripts for her episodes would be, and if they would have properly set her up as a character instead of her just appearing out of the blue in the final episode. This fact also confirms that Nia and the Unfriendly Elephant was rewritten so that Nia would take the elephant, as Season 21 was before she was introduced. It is currently unknown who would have gotten the main character role in the original version before Nia arrived. I'm sure it was nobody important, but if it was, I bet the fans would have even more of a reason to dislike Nia. Anyways, in conclusion, Nia just isn't an interesting character in the show. They barely do anything with her, and she doesn't feel like the same character that we came to know in the movie. She would have been interesting if they had just done a little more with her, but overall, she's just a pretty disappointing new character, and one of the most unlikable characters in the show's run. But hey, at least she's not as bad as Bash, Dash, and Ferdinand.
I'm Bash! I'm Dash!
And I'm Ferdinand.
Ugh. Well, I think that'll just about do it for this video. This video was a really fun one to go over, and I really liked going into detail on why exactly Nia didn't work in the show as compared to the movie. It proved to be really fun to come back on an idea that I had posed in a previous video of mine. So who knows? Maybe I'll give my other ideas sometime in the spotlight. I did mention that the Brenner era was on par with the classic series in my top 10 Thomas episodes video. Maybe it's time I get around to explaining why. But that'll have to wait for another video because I'm gonna end this one here. Thanks everybody so much for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this one. This is the TSMU fan, signing out. Special thanks to my Patreon supporter, Master Painter, and I give an extra special thanks to those patrons of mine who have chosen to remain anonymous. If you'd like to learn how to get your name at the end of every new video that I upload, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Link is on my channel homepage under my channel description.